Percentage composition of compounds. So what is percentage? Well, in order to calculate percentage is basically you divide the given amount by the total amount. The answer is usually in a decimal form to tell you how much of a fraction you have of the total amount. That's what a percentage is. Basically just a fraction of the total amount. The closer you are to 100%, the closer you are to the actual value of the whole thing. Once we have the decimal form, we multiply by 100 to get it in percentage. So now we're going to talk about percentage composition of things you already know. So taking a look at this problem here, an average boy weighs about 160 pounds, average girl weighs 130 pounds. So if there's 12 boys and 10 girls in class, then what is the percent mass composition of boys and girls? Well, first thing that we do is we take a look at how many boys and we multiply that by the average weight. And we get the total mass of boys to be 1,920 pounds. We do the same for girls, where we mass 10 girls by the average weight of 130 pounds, and we get a total. Okay? So what we do in order to get the mass composition of the boys is we take the total mass of the boys, which is 1,920, and divide it by the total amount of the mass of the class. And when we do that, we get 0.6, and we multiply by 100 to get 60%. We do the same for girls, and we get 40%. So what we can say is 60% of the mass comes from boys, and 40% of the mass comes from girls. Now let's take a look at a problem in chemistry. So how to calculate percent composition of compounds? Well, we're basically trying to figure out the mass fraction for a given element. And the way we do that is we take the mass of one element present in 1 mole of the compound and divide it by the mass of 1 mole of the entire compound. Once we have the mass fraction, then we convert the mass fraction into a percentage by multiplying by 100. For example, it says calculate the percentage composition of each element in this compound, C2H5OH. So step 1 is to calculate the mass of each element by multiplying the molar mass by the number of atoms of each element separately. So there are 2 moles of carbon within this molecule times the molar mass of carbon, which is 12.01 grams per mole, and we get 24.02 grams. We take the mass of hydrogen, and there's the molar mass of hydrogen is 1.008 grams per mole, and there are 6 moles of hydrogen within this compound here. Therefore, we multiply those two numbers, and we do the same for oxygen. There's only 1 mole of oxygen, and the molar mass of oxygen is 16 grams. So we simply take all these numbers and we add them up to get the total molar mass of the compound, which is 46.07. Okay? Now we're going to take each one of these numbers, 24.02, 6.048, and 16.00, and divide it by the total molar mass to get the mass percentage of each element within that compound. So when we do that for carbon, we take 24.02 grams and divide it by the total molar mass, and we get 52.14%. We do the same for hydrogen, where we take 6.048 divided by the total molar mass, which is 46.07, and we get a mass percentage of 13.13%. And finally, we do the same for oxygen, and we get 16, which is the total molar mass of oxygen within that compound, divided by the total molar mass of the compound, and we get 34.73%. Now, what these numbers indicate is that the majority of the mass, or about 50% of the mass, comes from carbon. 34 or about 35% comes from oxygen, and about 13% comes from hydrogen. So the majority of the mass, again, comes from carbon. Here's a second example. Calculate the mass percentage of each element for the compound carbon. Here is your formula. You will always be given the formula in order to solve these problems. So go ahead and pause the video here and calculate. Alright, we're back, and here are your answers. So you should get a mass percentage of carbon, which is about 80%, mass percentage of hydrogen, which is around 9%, and a mass percentage of oxygen, which is around 11%.